All right, so boys and girls, yesterday we read The Garden of Abdul Ghazazi. Today we are going to reread it again. I'll read it to you, and this time I'm going to stop and ask you some questions. I want you to think about the answers, where you can find them in the text. You're going to look at your partner, whisper the answer to your partner, then raise your hand when you and your partner are ready to answer that question. Are we ready to go? 6 times Miss Hester's dog Fritz had bitten dear cousin Eunice. So when Miss Hester received an invitation to visit Eunice, she was not surprised to read, P.S. Please leave your dog home. Today we are reading The Garden of Abdul Ghazazi. It was written by Chris Van Allsburg. Yesterday, the kids read the story independently. I give them very little background knowledge, very little discussion or vocabulary. I just let them experience the text cold. Before you turn the page, I want you to think and talk with your partner. How can you tell that Alan is taking his pet sitting job seriously?
Fritz chew on the furniture.
Yeah, because he doesn't want him to destroy the house.
Alexander, give me one example of how he takes it seriously.
Well, he was not letting him do the things that he liked to do when.
Can you tell me an example of what kind of things he liked to do that he wasn't letting him do?
He loved to chew on the chairs and shake the stuffings, and he was doing that, but he didn't let him.
Perfect. One other question on this page. Why do you think the author mentioned that Alan hid his hat? Talk with your partner. Why do you think Alan hid his hat?
Because dogs love to chew on it.
Gwendy, what do you think?
Because probably he wanted to eat his hat because he liked chewing on it.
It does say that. He likes to chew hats. It's one of Fritz's favorite things to chew. But why would the author specifically mention the hat?
When the duck flies and gets his hat.
Mason, why do you think that he mentions the hat right away?
He has to, later in the story, they have that a duck grabs his hat and flies away with it.
Very good. That's something called foreshadowing. Can everyone say that? Foreshadowing. That's when the author kind of gives us a little hint of something that's going to happen later. All right, let's go ahead and turn the page. This was day 2 of a 4-day lesson. To support the kids who may have difficulty accessing that text, I do many things to make sure they have a deep understanding before they're expected to write any sort of response. They first read the story on their own, then I read it to them. They partner read, they listen to the story on CD, and then they have many opportunities to answer text-dependent questions with partners, as well as listen to a whole group discussion of those answers. Alan nervously climbed the great stairs, convinced Fritz had come this way and had been captured. Why is he convinced that Fritz had come this way?
Because he thought he was there because the fresh dog prints, they led to there.
Would anybody like to add to Katie's answer? Emma.
He thought he was trapped in there because Abdul Ghazazi doesn't really like dogs because they dig up his flowers.
So Emma says Abdul Ghazazi doesn't really like dogs. Have we read that part yet?
No.
Yes. But what clue in the story tells you that he doesn't like dogs? Jacob.
Because on the sign it says absolutely no dogs.
Yeah, good job. Think about how is Alan feeling at this point? Tell your neighbor.
He's sad and scared because he lost Fritz. He's sort of like a little nervous. Yeah. He doesn't really.
Before I call on someone, I want you to go back and look. What are the clues that tell you that he's feeling nervous?
His heart was pounding. His heart was pounding, so it's like when your heart pounds. Yeah, it's just like scared. Scared because when he climbed the stairs, his heart beat fast.
Yes, it said his heart was pounding. Can anybody think of another word besides scared? Gwendy?
Nervously.
Ooh, where did you get the word nervously?
It says, Alan nervously climbed the great stairs.
Exactly. When Alan took the bird in his arms, it tried to give him a bite. Good old boy, said Alan sadly as he patted the bird on the head. You really haven't changed so much. What does he mean, you really haven't changed so much? Tell your partner.
He's like riding still and trying to get his
Ariana, why does he say he hasn't changed so much?
Because he wanted to give him a bite again.
And it tells him he's
Really, actually, the duck.
really the duck. With tears in his eyes, he started for home. Behind him, Alan could hear Gazazi laughing. Now, I read this again last night, and I didn't catch that the first time. Behind him, Alan could hear Gazazi laughing. Why do you think he's laughing?
Because he tricked them.
What would be the other reason he might be laughing? Logan?
He's mean.
He's mean? But why would he be laughing if he's feeling mean right now? He either tricked him, or what did he do? Quinn?
Or he could have just like kidnapped Fritz and then he could have like quickly took him home and then he could have
So Quinn, does that go with the tricking part?
No.
kind of.
Either he tricked him into thinking that he turned Fritz into a duck, or what's the other explanation? Either it's a trick, or he really did it. So if he's tricking him, he's laughing because he tricked him, or if he really did it, he's laughing because he's mean. All right, let's keep reading. This particular text has high interest for the students. I have not had them do any sort of argumentative writing or persuasive writing yet this year, and I thought this was a good starting off point. Students feel strongly at the end one way or the other, whether Mr. Gazazi had turned the dog into a duck, and I knew they would be passionate when they went back to find their evidence in the text. I want you to think, why did the author choose to end the story with Fritz finding Alan's hat? Tell your partner.
When he was because the duck had the hat.
All right, Mia.
To make it like mysterious, like if the magician really turned Fritz into a duck because the duck flew off with Fritz's hat.
So Mia said to make it mysterious, like how did Fritz have the hat at the end when the duck is the one who flew away with the hat? Would anybody like to add to Mia's? Alexander?
Well, I think the author wanted you to know that how Alan lost the hat. Like
What?
at the end of the story.
How did Alan lose the hat?
The duck got it.
So how did Fritz have it at the end?
We don't know. Dropped it. But we don't know. We don't know.
Well, that's our question. That's what the question is going to be that you are going to answer using evidence from the text. You are going to decide, was Fritz really turned into a duck?
Yes.
Talk to your neighbor for a minute. What do you think?
It's a hard question. But the duck, maybe he did, but the duck really bit him, and that was like Fritz.
Yeah, maybe he did turn into a duck. Or maybe the duck could have just dropped it. And he said it only lasts a day. Maybe he could have turned it back. But it's nighttime. I don't know.
All right, so boys and girls, this is what you're going to do. You have to pick an argument. Are you going to argue, yes, he turned into a duck? Or are you going to argue, no, he did not turn into a duck? What you're going to do now is go back to your seats, and instead of doing sticky notes today, you're just going to draw a light little star every time you find evidence to support either, yes, he was a duck, or no, he was not a duck. I think about the flow of my class. They can't sit in one place for too long. They need to physically change their place in the classroom or their position of their body. So I am always thinking about moving them. I have our question written out that you need to answer. We'll start writing tomorrow. We'll just do some more thinking about what our answer will be today. Do you think that Fritz was really turned into a duck? Defend your argument by citing evidence from the text. What words do you need to know to answer this question? Ariana? Evidence. So boys and girls, who can tell me what evidence means? Shawnee?
It means like proof.
It's exactly what it is. It's proof. You have to prove your argument. Is there any other word that you need to know in order to answer that question?
Citing.
Citing. Ooh, I don't know if I've used that word with us before. Citing evidence from the text. What do you think that might mean? Mason.
I think it means like something where you could, like where it says it in the book, like where you found it.
That's exactly right. If you're citing evidence from the text, you're saying exactly what it says from the book. You're telling us what the author told you in order to prove your argument. Any other words you need to know? Logan.
You need to know text.
Text. What is text?
The words in the story.
Exactly. It's the words in the story. What other word do we need to know?
The argument.
Argument. What's an argument?
When you disagree with someone and you're like, I think this, but they're like, I don't think that. I think something else.
Yes, and if you are arguing with someone back and forth, if you say yes and they say no, what do you have to do?
You have to prove.
You're going to prove it. You're going to defend your argument by citing evidence from the text. You're going to prove it. All right, any other word we need to know?
Defend.
Defend. What does defend mean? Defend your argument. I think the differences between Common Core and our other methods of teaching is that we're really going for an understanding, a deeper understanding. We want the kids to be able to access text on their own and pull information and pull meaning from that text without the support of the teacher as the lead.
The magician listened carefully and then smiling said, "Certainly you may have your little Fritzy." Because he was listening carefully, so he knows which duck to give to Alan.
Absolutely, positively, no dogs allowed in this garden. Abdul Ghazazi, retired magician. I started that because retired magician, it means he probably couldn't do magic anymore.
When I'm asking them the questions, they're going back into the text to find the answers there. One really good example that I've noticed that my students do now is when I used to ask them questions, they would look up for the answers. Like the answer was somewhere in their head or within themselves. Now my students all the time look down, look straight into their book, and look for the answers there.
Alan saw the duck going while Frizz was at the house. And Frizz must have found the duck and scared it away and got the hat. While Alan was home. But Alan, he took care of him. But when he went to Mr. Ghazi's house, he wasn't really paying that much attention. Like, he wasn't paying all his attention.
Yeah, and when he could have just the duck could have just dropped the hat by accident, and the Frizz just kind of been acting like he took the hat instead.
Yeah, because if the ducks, that was just ducks.
Yeah.
If it would just be weird if, and plus, it says, right? It says that no one.
Say that he turned into a duck.
Yeah, no page says that.
Yeah.
All right, let's start with no, he was not a duck. Who can give me evidence from the text supporting that argument that no, he was not turned into a duck?
Mrs. Hester said that Mr. Gazazi might have been playing a trick on him.
Nice.
The second sentence says he promised himself he would never be fooled again. And that probably gives proof. And on page 410, I'm afraid Mr. Ghazi played a trick on you.
Nice.
On page 410, it says, you see, Alan, no one could really turn dogs into ducks.
Nice. Now we're going to switch to yes. Who is arguing that yes, he was turned into a duck? Logan, can you give me a piece of evidence?
When Alan took the bird in his arms, it tried to give him a bite, and that's like Fritz, so he could have.
You haven't changed so much.
And what was it about him that hadn't changed?
'Cause he bit him, and well, he really hasn't changed.
Yeah, he bit him just like he did when he was a dog.
A gust of wind took Alan's hat, sailing right off his head along. The duck just took it in midair, like Fritz, because Fritz likes hats.
So the duck liked hats just
Yeah.
like Fritz did.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, I will have them listen to the story again on CD, so they get one more reading before they're required to start writing their response. In third grade, they're still working on that introductory sentence, so we'll work together on changing that question into their first sentence of their response. And then they're pretty good at filling in the rest of their writing with their evidence from the text. All right, so boys and girls, tomorrow we will change our question into our opening sentence, and you will argue, yes, he was turned into a duck, or no, he was not turned into a duck, based on the evidence you find. Who's right? You're only as right as your argument. You have to have a good argument to prove that you're right. All right? Thank you. All right, boys and girls, you may put your books away.